Welcome to the Undercovers football podcast. I'm Ben, along with Paul and Connor, and we are back to talk some NFL offseason after a much-needed 6-week break. But football is finally kind of getting back into swings. We have some nice new graphics, courtesy of our graphics guy, aka Paul. So I'm excited to be back.
Complete with spelling errors and everything.
Yes,
Absolutely
it wouldn't be
world-class job, Paul.
it wouldn't be complete without a few spelling errors.
It's his personal touch. That's
Right.
what we're going to roll with right now. That is his personal touch.
Spelling is hard sometimes, Just
Says
sometimes
the
it's
guy
hard.
that writes.
That is true. Great to
That-
be back. 6 weeks off was great. It was needed. Got the mind clear, and now we're back until now we're just back talking Bills football again, and hopefully this time, hopefully 2025 is the year where we're not mentally drained at the end of the year, and we're celebrating something.
God.
Agreed. What
guys,
happened?
James Cook tweeted again.
Well, we'll get to that later. We have some nice James Cook topics on the agenda today.
Oh, we absolutely do.
And as far as the season, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season the Bills were playing in the AFC Championship game, I probably would have signed up with it. So as disappointing as it was, considering it was right within their grasp, I still can't be too upset with how the season ended. So
can't feel bad with how our season ended, and certainly can't feel bad with how the season as a whole ended.
I turned the page on that, ready to see offseason. So
let's start with our first quick take of
all
the
right.
night.
Yep.
There goes Connor. Where did he go?
Give me a second. I gotta do something real quick. So introduce a quick take, and I'll be right back.
Okay. So the first quick take of the geez, we're back and we had some technical difficulties early. That's fine. Back to the quick takes here as we introduce the first one is, how should teams feel about Shedeur Sanders after his combine interviews? And those combine interviews were interesting, and they gave off a different feel to each team. Definitely, the media took it in a way as in, this guy is maybe trying to manipulate where he wants to go, just tanking interviews and say like, hey, I don't want to go in the top few teams because they're bad teams or just bad fits. How do you feel teams feel about Shedeur Sanders, Ben?
Just from what I've seen and read, not particularly good for Shedeur Sanders. I forget the exact reporter, but someone said today that 2 teams in the top 10 that met with him, their opinion of him was worse after their meeting with him than it was before. And that was not the case with Cam Ward. The teams that met with Cam Ward were very impressed with Cam Ward. So definitely not a good look for Shedeur Sanders. I mean, he'll still have a bunch of, pre-draft interviews and stuff, and hopefully he's able to, get his stock up a little bit. But it wasn't exactly, I think, what Shedeur Sanders was looking for, considering he also did not compete in the combine. He was, just meeting with teams. He didn't work out. So it sounds like a couple teams were kind of turned off. I mean, I think if his last name wasn't Sanders anyways, he would not be a top 10 pick. But I mean, it is also a weaker quarterback class. So it's, teams need quarterbacks. You've seen what the quarterback market is right now. Matthew Stafford ended up staying,
which we all figured he would.
Yes, I never thought for anything that he would go to the Giants. Like that really didn't make much of any sense to me. But I mean, You got Aaron Rodgers, obviously. Kirk Cousins could end up being cut. Sam Darnold wasn't franchise tagged by today's deadline. So, we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, the only other quarterbacks are Daniel Jones, Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz. It's not a great class. I mean, then you also have Jackson Dart, who did compete in the combine. And, I mean, he did all right from my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't draft any of these quarterbacks high other than Cam Ward. But we also don't need a quarterback, thankfully. I am going to laugh at whoever ends up drafting DJ Ugalungale, even though
God.
I hope it's like the Jets or Miami. That would be
No,
funny.
let's, you know what? As much as I really want to say, yeah, let's have the Jets draft DJ. If you've read the report about what they've supposedly done to Jordan Travis in his rehab, I would not wish him any kind of career with the New York Jets. As a matter of fact, I think the Bills should part ways with a late seventh from at least this year or next year to free him from the hell that is the New York Jets.
They may not have to, because it sounds like, from what I've read, that Jordan Travis may end up getting cut from the Jets because he was drafted by the previous regime. So, I mean, we might be able to get him for free. But
Bill,
let's move on to our next quick take.
Next quick take goes to a potential reunion of two players that played with each other in New York and in Green Bay, as they're both getting cut by the Jets. As we already know, Davante Adams was released today, and Rodgers to soon be. So, Connor, do we think we're going to get a reunion of Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams in Las Vegas?
Not in Las Vegas, no. What I feel like is going to happen, and obviously I'm not some soothsayer, I can't see into the future. I wish, but I don't think that the Raiders are going to take a swing at a veteran quarterback. I think they're going to either take the first quarterback that winds up falling in their lap in the draft, whether it be Shedeur Sanders or even Cam Ward, which who knows how that's going to shake out, considering how many teams in the top 5 actually really don't need a quarterback. Titans kind of don't. I actually don't remember the draft order off the top of my head right now, but I actually think what you'll probably see, this is a very unlikely outcome considering this team's cap situation, but I think if you're going to see Davante Adams reunite with anybody, I don't think it would be Aaron Rodgers. I think it would probably be his former college roommate Derek Carr with the New Orleans Saints.
Or could he potentially go back to Green Bay, because Green Bay has said they needed a franchise quarterback. Now, real quickly before we wrap this quick take up, I know you mentioned you don't see Vegas getting a veteran quarterback, but there have been reports about the Steelers potentially keeping one of their two quarterbacks, and that is not the veteran. So what if there was another type of reunion in Vegas between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson?
That would be fairly interesting. And I actually think that could happen now that you mention it, because Pete Carroll is indeed their coach now. That would be a possibility. They could sign one of Russell Wilson or even Justin Fields in free agency, whoever the Steelers let go. And if it is Russell Wilson,
it's sounding like it's Russ right now.
It does. From everything I hear from Yinzerland, that does indeed sound like it's going to be Russ. So that would be a fairly interesting pairing. I mean, it's not going to be the Legion of Boom days. They aren't going to be any kind of threat to the Chiefs, which, by the way, speak of the Chiefs, if any one of you has like some kind of candles or any kind of incantations, say something to make sure Davante Adams does not take a cheap win deal with the Chiefs, or else the football world is absolutely in trouble. You could imagine Brett Veach being so upset from losing that Super Bowl that he just says, you know what? We don't want to do this again. And they pluck Davante Adams off of just out of nowhere, making everybody upset.
Honestly, though, if the Chiefs get Davante, that means they can't spend anything on their O-line. After, they franchised Trey Smith, they're right now I believe $8 million under. I mean, they could still create cap space. Obviously, we know you can maneuver and create space. Just because we're currently 10 million under, so it'll be interesting to see
Mhm.
what the Bills end up doing before next week when they have to be cap compliant before the NFL New Year starts next Tuesday. I believe at either 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. It might be 4 p.m.
It should be
But
4.
I believe it is 4. But the Bills have some moves they have to make. So I mean, the Chiefs, even if they sign Devontae, though, they're not going to be able to fix their tackle situation, and I think that's a bigger need for them.
Mhm,
Because I believe DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown are both free agents. But speaking of free agents,
mhm.
the Bills have multiple free agents this year, obviously, but some of the free agents next year um, are going to be getting extensions soon. We already saw Khalil Shakir be rewarded
Yeah,
for an awesome season. He
my
he
boy.
got 4 years, 60 million, and another star from the Bills 2025 and arguably the end of the 2024 season on offense, James Cook, has not been quiet about his
Oh
contract
god.
extension.
Oof.
Reportedly, asking for 15 million per year. We just saw Saquon Barkley get extended for 2 years, 40 million. So,
Mhm.
I mean, that obviously doesn't help the Bills, but in a way, we
Listen.
don't have to hear Bills fans anymore say you're paying Cook more than Saquon because they're not going to pay.
Mhm.
If they do pay Cook, it's not going to be more than Saquon. In my opinion, let me just give my take real quickly on the number for Cook. I think it should be maybe 3 years. Um, I'll say 42 million because that puts him right at about what he wants. Maybe have the actual cap number be closer to 12 or 13 million a year. So he's right on par with Josh Jacobs and those guys at running back, even though he doesn't play the snaps that Josh Jacobs does. And I get the argument. He only played 45% of the snaps. Ty Johnson looked really good on third down. And Ray Davis, while I wouldn't say he had a great rookie season, he did flash at times, and he only averaged 3.9 yards per carry, though, and he is going to be 26 this upcoming season, which is the same age as Cook, except Cook has um 2 more years of experience than Davis in the NFL. And if you look at between college and pros, Davis actually has more carries than Cook because Cook really did not have any carries in Georgia, and he only had like 89 carries as a rookie. So he
Mhm.
really doesn't have the wear that a lot of these running backs do, and that's been one of the bigger concerns with paying running backs. I mean, I get it. There's a lot of running backs coming out in this draft, but unless you're getting a Quinshawn Judkins, a Travion Henderson, or an Omarion Hampton, I don't think any of the other guys you get are going to be an upgrade from Cook or even be the same level of Cook. And you obviously don't know if a rookie is going to step in right away and give you what James Cook has done the last couple of years. And when you're so close to a Super Bowl, I am a little nervous about breaking it up. Normally, I'm not pro paying running backs, but I think James Cook is a special situation because of his age, because of the carries he had, not a lot compared to other running backs, looking for a second contract. So I would pay Cook that 3 years, 42 million. Give him a good signing bonus, give him some incentive. So if he has like 1,500 rushing yards or whatever, or another
Mhm.
15 touchdown season, he can earn a couple, 2, 3 million more to get up to that 15 million, which is what he wanted for. I mean, that would still put him among the top paid running backs in the league. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
even 3 years, 39 or 3 years, 40 million gets it done. But I'm not ready to part ways with James Cook yet.
Oh, yes. You know what? I think that's an actually really good segue for my take on this subject, and I have a very interesting way of looking at it compared to what I believe everybody else is going to understand. So, youngins, let me tell you of a story of how I already went through this once. And the reason I say youngins is because I don't know how many of you remember a guy by the name of Le'Veon Bell, but this is the exact same situation all over again. Basically, let me explain for those that haven't gotten into football recently enough to understand what I'm talking about. The ones that have been watching for a long time, they most likely know because this was a big, big deal. But the year's 2018. Le'Veon Bell, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, just made his mark on the team. was one of the best running backs in the entire league, behind one of the best offensive lines in the entire league. And after the Steelers season abruptly ended with a divisional round loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, Le'Veon Bell also was up for extension, and he really wanted to get paid. But the difference that I'm seeing between his situation and the one James Cook is currently in right now, James Cook seems to be wanting to actually compromise and negotiate a little bit more with the Bills. With Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers, it was literally, I want my money or I'm gone. Long story short, what happened to Le'Veon Bell is literally the exact same thing that I think will happen to James Cook if he takes a lot of money from a team that's willing to pay him, but is not willing to actually give him the environment he had in Buffalo. Remember, the reason that we were able to run the ball so well this season is because our offensive line was one of the best blocking units in football. That was the same case with Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers. That run block unit was the best, well, one of, if not the best unit in the league. So here's the take. This is the exact same situation. You don't do what the Steelers did. The Steelers gave him an updated contract. They gave Le'Veon Bell one. Le'Veon Bell literally said, no, I don't want this. I believe I'm worth more than this. But where it stopped is because the Steelers did not want to continue that negotiation. The Bills and Brandon Beane, they need to ensure that they continue that discussion. By no means, in my opinion, do you let James Cook leave that building and leave this city. Because
Eh,
if you do, and a team signs him for what he wants in terms of money, he will
Let's
be
pray
worth.
it's yes, and let's pray it's not Kansas City because they arguably need a number one running back right now.
Mhm.
And
That would be terrible
real
because they
quickly,
actually have an offensive line that could block for him.
yes, and
The
real quick,
difference is the difference is I still feel like if it's going to be anyone that signs James Cook for what he wants, it will be a bad team with a bad offensive line. They will sign him and they will be like, "Wait, why is he bad all of a sudden?" I'll tell you why, because the Bills knew how to use him and had an offensive line and system that benefited his skill set. That's also why the Bills offense was so good this year when nobody said it was going to be, because we ran the football with James Cook that effectively. You keep James Cook at almost all cost. So whatever he wants, you pay him. You ever any of you ever watch Family Guy? That clip with Peter Griffin when he goes, "Sir, here's a check with my name on it. Write down any number on this piece of paper and I will pay it." That can realistically apply to James Cook for the amount of impact he had in this offense. Yeah, Josh Allen is the MVP. Yes, this team has great wide receivers already. Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, and it has great tight ends, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. But James Cook really was the engine that made this offense go. And I don't want to lose that. You keep that man at almost any cost.
and
Period.
and to kind of just piggyback off you real quick, James Cook is an ascending star. I think he has more room to improve, which is
Hmm.
why again I would pay him because you don't necessarily pay guys based off of what they've done. You pay them off of what they're going to do. And if you believe James
Hmm.
Cook is a top 5, top 6 running back in football, you pay him at all costs. I mean,
Yes.
look at what happened to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense after they got rid of Le'Veon Bell. They went from the killer bees to being the killer mids. So
Hmm.
I think it's
I
something
know.
you have
Well,
to do. I mean, as good as James Conner is now in the league, it took him a lot of years to develop into being even half the back that Bell is. And I think he's a
actually,
quality back now, but he's
mhm.
still not as good as Le'Veon Bell was at the time.
No. Listen. You know what made that story actually so interesting? James Conner's best years were his first few with the Steelers because what did he have? He had an offensive line that can block for him. If
Well,
Arizona
actually, he
developed
has
an
been
offensive
very
line,
good. he has been good in Arizona,
Oh
though.
yeah,
To
he has
be
been
fair,
good. I will agree, but I still think he can be even better. James Conner is that kind of guy. I have been a James Conner believer from day one. I still am, and I've got a bit of a personal stake in that from his time with the Steelers. I definitely think that James Conner could be that guy for the Cardinals in terms of running back, and they need to develop a offensive line that will absolutely cater to him and cater to my boy Trey Benson. But that's a different story because it's basically like how we used Ray Davis or Ty Johnson, which by the way, we need to re-sign Ty Johnson as well. Bring both of them
we'll
back.
get to him later.
Yep,
We have another
bring both of them
topic
back.
that will include Ty Jackson.
Bring him back. Bring him back and bring Amari Cooper back.
Now let's let Paul cook so we
Yes.
can wrap this up. What would the number be for you, Paul?
I think the perfect number here for James Cook is right around 13 with
Okay.
incentives. I think that's like the perfect like baseline for James Cook, and that would be, I think, the perfect middle ground middle ground for both Bean to accept and for Cook to accept. Because if you really look at it, you look at his market value, like on these cap sites, his market value is at like $10 million. So Cook is asking for at least $5 million more than what his actual market value is. So if you come somewhere in the middle with incentives, I think it would be a great deal for the Bills and Cook, because look, he had his second back-to-back 1,000-yard season. He had 16 rushing touchdowns this year, and I expect him to do the exact same thing in 2025. So you do 13 with incentives, you get up right around to maybe 15, $16 million, and you just work your way to getting the money that you want. And I think that's the perfect way to keep Cook happy and keep the Bills within striking distance to add more to the free agency. And that, allows us to go into our next topic here, which is, we have to sign some free agents this offseason, to bring back some guys, some core guys that were good last year for the Bills, and to keep building for this year. So I'm going to ask you guys this. Out of the 11 remaining unrestricted free agents, which ones should the Bills prioritize the most?
I like this.
The 11
So let me
unrestricted, you
actually.
mean hours, right? From already on
Yes.
the Bills?
Yes, Bill. So these are the current free agents that are on the Bills that will hit free agency next week, unless Brandon Bean can come to an agreement before then. Um, oh shoot, I had the list up. And now
Yeah,
my
I need to actually
computer's
pull
glitching
the
out.
list up.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I can pull it up if you need me to.
Yeah,
I
I
should
actually
hide it
just
under
I just found it as well. Apparently,
All right.
there's actually 12. I think one of you said 11.
Yeah, I said
According to
11, but
this,
it's
at least
probably
there's
12.
12. Yeah, it's 12.
All right. It was close. All
Unless
right. So,
someone has
Cooper,
already
Russell,
been
geez.
I got him.
re-signed.
I got him.
All right, cool.
All right. So let me go through. Sorry, my thing was giving me technical difficulties. So I'll just pull it up
As
on my
always.
phone. So we got fullback Reggie Gilliam, wide receiver Amari Cooper, running back Ty Johnson, as you mentioned earlier. Connor, wide receiver Matt Collins, defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson, defensive tackle Austin Johnson, defensive end DeJuan Smoot, cornerback Rasul Douglas, safety DeMar Hamlin, long snapper Reed Ferguson, tight end Quentin Morris. So I think a fun little exercise real quickly would be just to go around for each of them and just tell you, and we can each give a quick answer if we would pay or pass, I guess. So, or walk, I guess pay or walk will be what we'll use. So, fullback Reggie Gilliam, are you paying or letting him walk? I'm
Oh,
paying
yeah.
Reggie Gilliam.
Yeah, I think I'm
He's
going to pay Reggie Gilliam.
big for the run game, and he's a good special
Mhm.
teamer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're unanimous on this one. We're all paying Reggie Gilliam
So
straight
this
up.
one should definitely have some mixed reviews, in my opinion. I definitely already know where I stand on this wide receiver, Amari Cooper. I was excited about this addition at the time, but I'm letting him walk because that screen pass he had against the Chiefs was kind of rough. It was set up perfectly by Joe Brady in the blocking. And it just, to me, it seems like he doesn't have any more juice. And we need speed on the offense. So I'm getting younger in the wide receiver room.
Interesting.
1000% I agree with that.
So
At the time, the trade was a great deal, but looking back at this now, after we've seen what we've seen after the trade, just didn't work out. And sometimes trades work, sometimes they don't, and this one didn't. And you move on from Amari Cooper and get younger.
I'm actually kind of intrigued to hear both of you say walk. I just feel like the trade when the Bills made it, that was revolutionary for the offense because it changed the way that defenses had to approach the Bills offense because now they actually had Amari Cooper who has the talent to be that kind of guy. So they had to look at the offense very, very differently. And that played a huge factor in the reason why the Bills were able to get different looks on defense and win football games is because they were approaching it in a way that they were kind of looking too much at Amari Cooper and they weren't really looking at anybody else. So
You're
for
paying
two
him?
reasons, I am actually going to say I would pay him.
Okay,
One,
interesting.
I think his impact on the receiving core cannot be understated. Two, you have to justify that trade at in the middle of the season last year. If you trade for him and then let him go, you basically made that trade for nothing, and the Browns basically fleece with that trade. So on both of those points alone, I find a way to bring Amari Cooper back to the Bills.
Well, I mean, they still ended up getting, I believe, a 5th-round pick in return for him. So it's not like the Bills sent a straight 3rd-rounder for Amari Cooper. And number
You
2,
also get a
I
comp
hear where you're
pick if you
coming
let him
from.
walk.
Exactly. I was just going to mention that as well. Thank you, Paul. I know you're reading my thoughts right there, but even without Amari Cooper, after we went down the Seattle game, the Bills still scored 30 points every week without Amari Cooper. I think it was more so at the time, you know, the Bills played that Texans game without Shakir, the second half of that Ravens game without Shakir. And I think it was more or less them not having Shakir on the field, which is why the wide receiver room was struggling so much. And I think Josh just needed to develop chemistry. Curtis Samuel was still injured. He's been a lot better, towards the end of the season when he got healthy.
Well,
So I
yeah.
hear where you're coming from, Connor, but I think there are ways you can explain the lack of production from the receiver room. And we brought back the most important piece there. And there's another guy on this list who I actually would bring back who was more impactful at the end of the season. But before we get to him,
Oh, I know
Ty
where you're going with
Johnson,
it.
pay or walk. And I'm paying him. He averaged, I believe, the most touches for a running back with more than 50 touches last season. He was huge in the playoffs. Got great hands, a great receiving back. He's one of the best. Josh Allen called him the best 3rd-down back in football. So I'm paying him. Obviously, you can't overpay him, but I would pay Ty Johnson.
Yeah, you pay Ty Johnson because
Yep.
for really this reason only is that Ty Johnson can pass block and he can be in the 2-minute, 3-minute drill when you need him the most, and he can catch those screen passes and get yards. And goes back to the James Cook argument. Why James Cook isn't on the field is because his game is not filtered around pass blocking. So you bring back your pass blocking back for 3rd downs and 2-minute drills.
Yep. We're unanimous again. Pay Ty Johnson. Keep him in Buffalo, period. Someone will get him if Buffalo does not. And I absolutely would love to have Ty Johnson back in this on this team in this fold. We need that elite number 26 aura, and he definitely brought it. All right, he made the 26.
100%.
He brought the good vibes to the 26, and
Speaking
that's
of good
exactly what the elite
vibes,
and that's what elite teams have is a elite running back with the 26.
Speaking of vibes, Matt Collins was a big vibes guy, but he also was very impactful in multiple ways between special teams, and he made some big plays late in the season in the playoffs. I'm re-signing him. Good veteran presence for the wide receiver room.
Oh yeah.
So I'm paying him. I don't think we have any disagreements here, right?
Yeah,
Nope.
there's no disagreements with that. I mean,
Keep the man with the foot
what he
fetish in
did just
Buffalo.
explains what he did this season explains for itself literally in the stat sheet.
Mhm.
You know, he had the most receiving touchdowns of his NFL career here in
Mhm.
Buffalo. You bring him back.
Yeah, almost like he's finally playing with a good team and a good quarterback for once.
Defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson.
No,
See ya. Yeah.
get out of here.
I mean, I'm not gonna harp on him too much because he was brought in mid-season. The Bills really needed
Yeah.
defensive tackle help. Like he was impactful at times, but yeah, this is a guy you can let walk. Defensive tackle Austin Johnson. I feel the same way for Austin Johnson as Quentin Jefferson.
Mhm.
He was pretty. I mean, he did have 2 interceptions this year for defensive tackle, which was clutch. But
I
other
love
than
that.
that, he really did not do too much. Now, Dwayne Smoot is an interesting one. I actually think I
Mhm.
would repay him because he set the edge very well and he was
Mhm.
good in the run game. So I think we probably are all in agreement here as well.
I am
Yeah.
at least.
Resign Smoot.
All right,
Yeah,
cool. Yes,
Then
resign.
then we have a couple more that are probably gonna have some mixed answers. Maybe not the last one of these, and then the last one should be pretty fairly obvious too. Cornerback Rasul Douglas, as much of a fan
Oh
favorite
boy.
he is, and as great as he was his first year in Buffalo, you could kind of see the age showing up with him at the end of the season. And I think the Bills need to get younger at the cornerback position. I mean, if he does take a cheap deal to come back, I'm not gonna hate it, but they definitely need another cornerback that could push him to start. So I would lean no on this one though for
Oh,
paying him.
I'm
all
going
right.
the opposite direction here. I think you bring him back on a low deal and you draft a cornerback behind him. You know, I think he's serviceable for at least one more year, develop a
Mhm.
young
See,
corner,
I'll
and then
disagree with
just
that real
transition
quick.
out of it.
I think at the end of the season he wasn't necessarily serviceable. He did have injuries, so I mean,
Mhm.
yes, I'm not going to be opposed to having him come into camp and compete, but I would like to get a cornerback who has a possibility to beat him out in camp because the corners. I mean, I get it. A lot of it was Kyer Elam having to play,
Blech.
but yeah. But I'm
Don't say
interested to
that
see
name. I will
how
throw
you
up.
feel about Douglas now, Connor.
Okay, so I am in 100% agreement with Paul.
Okay.
You keep Rasul Douglas, and just listen, Ben. You're gonna love my vision. You keep Rasul Douglas. You draft Azare Thomas, our boy out of FSU, to play alongside Rasul Douglas, and we will have our own no-fly zone with Azare back there, learning from Rasul. I think that Rasul definitely has a lot left in the tank. I feel like just toward the end of the season when he tapered off, I don't exactly know how much of that was probably due to injury, but you absolutely, in my opinion, keep him because if you lose Rasul Douglas, now a team with a desperate need of help at safety now has a desperate need of help at cornerback if you lose Rasul Douglas.
Well,
Because
Well,
remember,
here's
you said that
we'll get
cursed
into the
name.
needs later.
yeah.
Mhm.
Let's get to another. Speaking of safety, Damar Hamlin, a fan favorite. This year he had some great moments of time, but also some
Mhm.
pretty low moments. I might be in the minority here again, but I'm letting Damar Hamlin walk. I mean, he made arguably the defensive play of the playoffs versus Lamar Jackson, but his coverage reeks. And I think in order to let Cole Bishop flourish, you need to give that job to Bishop. I mean, I guess if he comes back as depth again, I won't hate it, but I'm against it per se.
I don't disagree. I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm kind of in between on this because it's obvious Damar Hamlin isn't a starter. If you bring him back as a starter and have him compete with Cole Bishop, well, I'm not really for that. I think the starting position should go to Cole Bishop, have him start, be in that starting position because I think he's more built for a starting safety role. And you bring back Hamlin on a short 1 year depth piece type thing. Yeah, I would be fine with it. You always need depth in every position. So if you're going to have him start, no. If you want him for depth, sure.
All right. Yeah. 100%. I'm actually going to give a bit of an interesting take on this. So for Damar Hamlin, I am actually going to put myself in both categories if one particular thing happens. And I think both of you might know where I'm going with this. There's a very particular free agent safety on the market right now that I want the Bills to absolutely acquire. If the Bills find a way to make former Miami Dolphins safety Javon Holland a
No,
Buffalo Bill, then you let DeMar Hamlin walk. What
pass
do you
on both.
mean no? What do you mean no? Okay, listen. I know
We'll
Javon
we'll get
Holland
to
really looked.
our free agent target soon. But I'm against Javon Holland for the price. I don't think a safety is worth what he'll be demanding.
Yeah, that's just it. You don't overpay a guy like Javon Holland, even though he has the talent to be that kind of safety, because that's
Who's
what
our
he
next
was in
free agent then?
Miami. Not last year, but you know
I
what I mean.
wouldn't be
So
surprised if he goes to Minnesota. Real quick, just
uh,
kind of putting one to
that's
one
an interesting.
together.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
actually wouldn't be surprised if he went to Philly.
maybe real quickly. We'll get through
Actually,
these
wait,
last
I
two.
forgot they hated each other. Never mind.
We'll get yeah, exactly. We'll get through this last two speed round edition, just because we still have some more free agency topics and some combine stuff to get to. So Grills Mafia, um, Re- uh, Reed, the long snapper,
Oh, Reed
I mean,
Ferguson.
I don't
Reed Ferguson. Yep.
haven't. Yeah, I don't haven't put much thought into into your long snapper, but
I
I
mean,
think you just bring them back.
an elite
Yeah,
long
he's great.
snapper with some elite aura and an elite number. I think you got to keep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, keep.
And we have the only restricted free agent who wasn't tendered, but the Bills can still resign him. They've done this with restricted free agents of the past. Quinton Morris, I would resign him because he's made big plays at time, and I think he's a good piece into the tight end room.
Didn't he already? Oh yeah, no wait, that's right. He is restricted now. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he'll be unrestricted now, I believe, because he didn't sign his tender.
Yeah, so
Right,
he
right.
goes from restricted
I
to
just
unrestricted, so you can go where he wants.
got it. Yeah, I just thought I had seen something that had happened with Quentin Morris, but I might have been looking. I might have been seeing it for somebody else. I wouldn't know. I've been so in depth into the racing world right now that I just haven't been paying attention to football news much.
All right.
But
I
did
guess
either of
I'll be
you?
fine with
Is it
bringing him back. I mean, the also the tight end pool in the draft isn't is kind of deep. So if you don't want to bring uh
Wait, it is deep.
Morris back, you can always just go
yes, it is.
into the draft.
But I will say this though, real quickly. I think the Bills have a lot of needs, which we're going to discuss shortly. So
We really
keeping
do.
him keeps a need, doesn't create another need, because if you get rid of him, it just creates another need. Connor, real quickly, are you for or against bringing back Q?
Uh I
Yes or
mean,
no?
honestly, I'd say still. I'd say let him walk. I mean, if you could
Okay.
draft a tight end, if the tight end class is really that deep, just draft one.
All
Draft
right.
one in the later
Interesting.
rounds.
All right.
If the tight end class is that deep, then yes, just draft another one.
Outside of the defensive line, which obviously, every Bills fan has been talking about, what are the other positions of need the Bills need to address? Feel like we kind of discussed uh, a little, a couple of them a little bit, but I guess we can each give one. My biggest need is going to be cornerback. Outside of the D line, um, I think you absolutely need to add someone on a cost controlled deal, especially since Christian Benford is probably going to get an extension soon. And this is a very good corner class, so I would be very disappointed if the Bills did not draft a corner in the top 2 rounds this draft.
Oh, absolutely. Bring Azare Thomas to Buffalo. That is the one guy I will constant. Like I fought for Keon Coleman last year, I will fight for Azare Thomas this year. Bean, if you're listening, get that man in a Bills jersey come April, please. He is going to
All right,
be
what
the
out,
best thing our secondary has ever seen in a
so
long
outside
time.
of cornerback and defensive line, what is your biggest need, Connor?
So you already mentioned quarterback, defensive line. I am actually going to go a little bit off course here. I don't think people are going to say this just off the top of their head, but I am actually going to say safety. I think that safety is a big
That
need
is
that the
definitely
Bills
one of
have as
mine.
well. Yeah, but I actually think that the needs on defense greatly outweigh the needs on offense.
Oh,
We
I'm not going to
desperately,
disagree with that either.
desperately, we desperately need help on the defensive side of the ball, particularly, most importantly, at pass rush more than we need anything else. So that's why I'm kind of been arguing against looking at wide receivers in free agency or anywhere else. Like, you fix the defense first. Look at my look at the little headline underneath my name, and you'll understand
Yeah,
what I
I
mean.
noticed that.
I
Paul,
mean,
Well, you guys went corner, you went safety, Connor. Defensive line obviously is the obvious answer,
mhm,
and then that's why we're saying besides defensive line. I think we're set at linebacker, so it just automatically just flips the page into offense and it goes to receivers. And I think, outside of Kincaid, Shakir, and maybe Samuel, who else, there's also Mac Hollins, who else really just, makes you go, oh, the Bills receiver room is good. And
oh,
I
whoa, whoa,
think
whoa! You forgot
drafting another,
about me and Connor's boy right there,
oh yeah,
yeah, how
Keon.
dare you?
Yes. I mean, I
right?
think Keon is a great piece to the Bills
Yes, he
offense. I
is.
mean, he
Yes, he
was
is.
for a certain point last year. And then
Hmm.
he, as you heard Sean McDermott, kind of, was a rocky end to the end of his
Yeah,
season.
that'll happen
And
with
I
an
think
injury.
he's ready to take the next step. It's whether or
Hmm.
not he wants to take that next step and put the work
He does.
into it.
He
And
will.
and I completely
He's
believe
already
he has
been
the
putting
case
in the
with
work.
Keon.
If you've been following him
Hmm.
on social media, he's already been working
Hmm.
out with some wide
Yep.
receivers coach.
Yep.
So he's been
Oh
taking
There you
the
yeah.
go. He's
steps.
putting in the
He
work, which
will.
is
He will
which is
put
what
in
we
that
need to
work,
see.
and he
So I
will. I mean,
think
that's a testament to Keon's character. Ben and I ought to know.
mhm,
I mean, that's just Keon. Like, he will put in the work, and he will come back even better than he was in his rookie year. It just sucks that the injury happened when it did, because he was
yeah,
really having a great season. I'm not going to be
Jordan
out here and
Poyer.
say, as what?
Jordan
I
Poyer.
said
Yeah,
Jordan
Jordan
Poyer.
Oh
Poyer.
God,
Yeah.
he was more of a Bills player this year than he was a Dolphins player. Let's be honest.
Not really though. Hurting Keon's rookie season.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was the only bummer.
that was a
I mean, I
bummer.
hated
That
that.
was a huge bummer.
So,
Why'd he have to
I
go and do
think
that?
we're going to go into more like, combine stuff a little bit later, but like adding a Matthew Golden or find
Stop that.
someone in the wide receiver market, in free agency wouldn't be a bad idea. I
It would
think,
be a
if
horrible
you go to
idea.
Shakir in most offenses is a wide receiver 2, maybe
Mhm.
3. And I think he's currently the wide receiver 1 of the Bills team. But I think the Bills know that they need a true wide receiver 1 for the time being, so they can put Shakir in the right role for this Bills offense. And I think he flourished last year as, in his role. But I think, just putting him in the right role just makes him even more of a threat to opposing defenses.
Real quickly as we move into our free agency topic. This is from Matthew Bove. He did tweet one of his question and answers that Cook should be back. He didn't even say should. He said he will be back next season regardless. So for anyone throwing him into their Myles Garrett trade packages, you might need to
Stop that.
find someone to replace him because Cook is going to be on the Bills um, this coming season. So we talked about needs. Now let's all give our one free agent we'd like the Bills to sign. And there's a lot of great free agents, but I know the Bills' money, they don't have unlimited money to do what Philadelphia did last year and sign Saquon Barkley, you know, um,
No, why
Chauncey
can't we
Gardner,
sign Saquon Barkley?
Gardner Johnson, and
Kidding.
all these other guys. So I expect I don't expect any massive moves of free agency. So that being said, I do have a realistic option here to solve one of the problems we mentioned previously in our last segment. And apologies in advance to Lauren, but
Oh no.
I want Hollywood Brown. I get it; his injuries are a concern, but you look at the one healthy season he played in Buffalo or Baltimore, sorry, with Lamar Jackson. And I've been on Kincaid's case for much of last season just because I had such high hopes for Kincaid coming out of Utah. But I personally believe if you get a guy like Hollywood Brown, Kincaid's going to have a career year. Because if you look at Mark Andrews' best season, when I believe he set the all-time tight end record, which still stands for yards in a season, that is when Hollywood Brown also had his best season in Baltimore. So there is some correlation to having a deep threat like that the defenses have to worry about is going to open things up underneath. Now, I get it. I believe it was Joe Marino, he only has 18 receptions out of his 70 deep ball targets the last 4 years. But keep in mind, he only played about 4 games in Kansas City. So him and Mahomes, the chemistry wasn't there. He was coming off an injury, and their offense was kind of already gelling at the time. But then he was playing with Kyler Murray and Josh Dobbs in Arizona. So I mean, it's not like he's been playing with a Josh Allen caliber quarterback the last 4 seasons. Obviously, besides the end of last season, but the 3 prior seasons, I mean, we all kind of know the story there. I get it. Some people might be in the minority, but the Chiefs signed him 1 year, $7 million last year, and he missed most of this year with an injury. So I don't think he's going to cost any more than that. So I would sign him.
Yeah.
I don't.
Another Brown, another one in that family tree to root for. I'd rather run my head through a board than root
Is
for
he
Marquise
related?
Brown.
Is he related to
Yes,
Antonio Brown?
yes, that is
Think he's like a
literally
cousin or
Antonio
something.
Brown's cousin.
Oh,
Like
perfect. Now
I
I
would
want him so CT
no,
ESPN can go to
no,
Bills games.
yeah. Let's not bring Antonio Brown's cursed energy through his cousin
Hey, he
to
did
the
win a
Bills.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, he did, don't remind me. He won a
Remember,
Super.
Antonio Brown
Then
was
you're
a Bill for a little bit,
yes,
just for
That was the
like a day.
exactly.
funniest moment of my life too. One of the very funniest. I thought we had a top 10 pick. I was so happy. Then Antonio Brown had to ruin it by saying I'd rather not play in football Siberia. Man, we were gonna pick 10th. We were gonna pick 9th that year.
I mean, I'm all
I'm
for
still mad
Hollywood
about it.
Brown. I think he would be a great ad set to the
No,
Bills offense. I mean,
absolutely
Ben
not.
laid it
Keep
out
that man.
perfect. If if
Build a
if
wall around the city to keep him away.
if if Brown can open up Kincaid,
Tell
I'm
him to
a
go sign with
thousand
Pittsburgh.
percent for it because I've been defending Dalton Kincaid throughout the 2024 season, and I'm still going to
Oh, I will
continue to
too.
defend Dalton
Same.
Kincaid. So if Brown comes in and helps the Kincaid agenda just a little bit more,
Then I'll have to eat
I'm
some
for
crow,
it.
but I'll be happy to do if Kincaid turns out to be a superstar. But
He
I'm
will
a
be.
But my
little
top free agent target, I think, goes back. This also ties into one of their needs at cornerback is DJ Reed. I think he would
Oh
be a
boy.
perfect cornerback for the Bills to
okay.
go alongside Christian Benford. You
That'd be
don't
good.
have to
That'd be
bring back
interesting.
Rasul Douglas. And then you had that 1-2 punch easy. And it's not even he's not even that really that expensive. I know 14.8 sounds expensive with the Bills cap situation, but I think the Bills would be able to work with right around 14.8 million. He's one of the better
Mhm.
one of the better players at his position. He had a 51% lockdown rate last year, so I think DJ Reed would be the guy I would like to pursue.
DJ Reed,
Connor,
huh?
who let's hear
That
let's I'm guessing you have a defensive lineman. Or no, I already know.
well,
You already mentioned earlier who you wanted, right?
I mentioned Javon Holland, yes, but
Yes.
I did have another one that
Okay,
kind of
let's
got
hear your
popped
other
up.
one.
Ben, you ought to know who I'm talking about when I say this, but a very
Oh boy,
particular defensive lineman that you and I both ought
Okay.
to know.
Yes.
think I know where this is going.
His name is Josh Sweat.
Okay.
There
I
we go.
like it.
I would absolutely love to have Josh Sweat on this team, depending on contract situations. And that's the exact same with Javon Holland. If you can make the contract situation work for either one, I think both of them ought to be priorities. Now, I actually really like the idea of DJ Reed, but I feel like if you just keep Sewell, you don't need to get DJ Reed at that point. You just draft Azare Thomas. But I'm also still of the opinion that even if you somehow manage to keep Sewell and sign a free agent cornerback, that you still draft Azare Thomas. But I'm more of a guy that will absolutely overload the defensive side of the ball because defense wins championships. Tell Trent Dilfer that offense wins everything, and I think he will vehemently disagree by showing you that Super Bowl ring from 2000. And yeah, that was a very pointed remark to all the
Same
Bills
with
fans that
Brad Johnson, right?
Yep, all the Bills fans are watching that I know are a little bit too heavily invested on the offensive side of the ball. Paul, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Him. That offense does not win championships. Get it through your head, buddy.
You know,
Mister, I'm
I,
obsessed with drafting every wide receiver and signing every wide receiver.
I
That's not
mean,
going to win the. You sign a guy, you know what he's going to do? Exactly what Kincaid did in the playoffs. Drop the ball when it matters.
okay.
So
If
let's
you get
let's
okay,
let's get into one of the bigger stories of the offseason, which it's no secret that Miles Garrett wants out of Cleveland and the
Bill,
Bills have been
Bill,
heavily linked to him. Now the question is, there's been several trade packages going around, as I mentioned earlier. Cook probably not going to be in any of these trade packages. But the question is for Miles Garrett, how much is too much to give up for Miles Garrett? And I'll answer
nothing.
first. I've even proposed exactly. I was going to give a long answer, but the short answer is nothing. He's a generational player who's going to make your whole defense better. He's like the
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen of defensive ends, and if you
Oh,
can
hey,
get
I
him,
said that.
go get. Oh, you did? I must have missed it.
Yeah, I've
Go
actually
get
been
him.
saying that for a while, is that he
Yeah.
would have the exact equivalent effect on our defense that Josh Allen has on the offense.
Paul, you might have to plug your ears, but if Cleveland asks for Greg Rousseau in the package, I'm driving Greg Rousseau personally to Cleveland,
Yep, I will too.
and you'll either draft an edge in the second round or you'll sign Khalil Mack for a 1-year deal and put
Yep.
Khalil Mack opposite
Josh Sweat.
Miles Garrett. Honestly, if it means we're getting Miles Garrett and it means we got to keep Vaughn, which I don't think it would work contract wise either way. But if those are the parameters for getting Garrett, I'm starting Von Miller opposite Miles Garrett because Miles Garrett is going to impose so much havoc himself that Von Miller will be looking like prime Von Miller back there because offensive lines are not going to have the game plan. And honestly, at times, Von Miller did show some flashes last season. But
he did. Yeah.
I mean, Rousseau, I have not really been
Groot.
quiet on this recently. I love the Marvel character Groot. I am Groot. But as far as Greg Rousseau, I do not particularly love him. I like him, but he needs to turn his pressures into sacks. And I've been on the opinion, and I'll state it again, I am not paying an edge $20 million plus that doesn't have a 10 sack season in their career. That's just my stance on it. You look at even Alex Highsmith has a 13 sack season, and he's worth it more than Rousseau.
I love that boy. I mean, I have
get him if he's available, right?
Yeah, I have a reason to be a very.
I think he might be a slight Watt merchant, but if you add Miles Garrett, I think whoever plays opposite. I mean, obviously, the ideal scenario would be to have Groot opposite Miles Garrett because Rousseau will probably have his first 10-digit sack season, but it would still, in my opinion, be tough to pay two defensive ends 20 to 25 million plus a year, which is why I'm not opposed to including Groot in the deal. But for 1 year, it would be one of the best defensive lines of football, along with Ed Oliver. Either way, you'll still get, like Paul mentioned with Cooper, if we let Groot play out his fifth-year option, we should still get a good compensatory pick next offseason.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, literally, there is no.
Unless it's Josh Allen.
Player. Yeah, now see, that's the obvious. I don't think anybody else needed to say it. Everybody but Josh Allen should be on the market or on the table for Miles Garrett. Like the moment the Browns are like, yeah, give us Josh Allen, hang up and never talk to him again. But anyone else, oh yeah, like I sent you guys the mock draft that I did not too long ago. That would never work in reality. I literally was able to have the Browns take both the Bills' first round pick this year and their first round pick next year for Miles Garrett and left it alone at that, there's no way it would work in real life. But if that worked, I would do that in a heartbeat. Give them this year's first and next year's first for Miles Garrett. And if they were to take that, oh my God, then you keep Groot. Sold. Like absolutely world class, just sold. You
All
get
right.
Miles Garrett here, and you will literally turn this team into the absolute Super Bowl contender that we really are right now, but on another level. Like we've
So
got
we know how
two
me and
Josh
Connor
Allens now.
feel about Miles Garrett. Paul, is there a
Bill at
price that
all
is too
costs.
expensive for you though when it comes to Miles Garrett?
Yes and no. I think it's just how you go about Miles Garrett. If you throw in Groot, what is your backup plan? Are you keeping Von Miller? If that's your backup plan, absolutely, I'm not giving up Groot. I don't think that's should be your backup plan. If your backup plan is to give up Groot in this deal, are you drafting an elite pass rusher in the draft with your first pick, which would probably be in the second round? That's your backup option. Sure. There's I think there is a certain place you go where you go like, okay, is this a little bit of an overpay? If you're going to go for Miles Garrett, you're probably going to have to overpay just a little bit because it's Miles
Worth
Garrett. He's one
worth
of
it.
the best pass rushers in the league. So, and I don't think Brandon Beane is opposed to overpaying for Miles Garrett. He already said that he would be willing to give up his first round pick to improve the Bills roster if it meant was in for a trade for Garrett, if it was meant to move up in the first round. So
Can
I
we send
think
them Mitch
Brandon Beane
Trubisky as
knows
well?
that he wants to be aggressive, and if overpaying for Miles Garrett just a little bit does that for him, sure. Just your backup plan has to be something within it doesn't destroy the rest of your roster. And I really honestly would like the idea of Miles Garrett and Groot on opposite ends in pass rushing because I just think it would just be an elite defensive line.
Guys,
So
I got it. Guys, I got it. All we got to do is send the Browns a quarterback. Send them Mitch Trubisky. There you go.
yeah, I'm sure that would
I
work.
mean, yeah, because the Browns are obsessed with quarterbacks. Have you seen that list of quarterbacks they've tried to start in the last couple of years?
So
Absolutely. Send them Mitch. They
let's
will fall all over him.
let's get to the combine talk real quickly. I know we're running out of time, but
Nah,
let's just put a pin in the Miles Garrett talk and say the
Bill,
Bills don't get Miles Garrett,
I will be sad.
or somehow it doesn't cost this year's first and he's traded after the draft or some crazy scenario. But either way, what is, as it stands based on the combine, what would be your round one priority after the combine? And this was a position mentioned by Connor, so I'll give a shout out to Connor. But after the combine, my priority right now is safety Nick Emanwari from
Ooh,
the South Carolina Gamecocks. He posted a perfect 10.0 relative athletic score based on his combine results. The man is 6'3", 220, and he runs a 4.38 on the 40-yard dash. He has a 43-inch vertical, put up 20 reps on the bench press. He's just an athletic freak that, McDermott and Bean would be salivating over the opportunity to draft him, especially add him to the safety room, play him next to Cole Bishop. He can be a versatile chess piece, either play deep safety, potentially play some nickel or corner as well. You can even use him as a sub package linebacker.
yes.
I think at pick 30, you're looking for a guy who can make an instant impact and potentially be elite. And we know the positional value on safeties is not as high as other players. That's why Kyle Hamilton somehow slipped in the first round. And you look at what the production Baltimore's gotten out of Kyle Hamilton. This guy is even more crazy athletic than Kyle Hamilton. So I'm looking at Nick Emanwari for my first round pick based on the combine.
Based on
Yeah,
the combine, I think we all know where I'm going for this. If no Miles Garrett and the Bills have a
be
first round
sad.
pick, you have to go get Matthew Golden. He's the
Stop
Ooh,
it.
perfect he is the perfect wide
don't
receiver
stop
for the
it.
Bills
Stop that.
offense. He
Don't
ran
stop
a
it.
Stop
He
that.
ran a
Stupid ball.
4.3 at the combine. He has great vertical
4.29
speed.
actually was his
I
official
know
speed.
4.29. I mean, that
Yes.
dude was blazing on the 40 meter, and he
Stop
has
that.
great hands, great separation. He
Let's
catches almost
just
every football that comes his way. You give Josh Allen that, just book the Super
let's
Bowl.
just hope that Terry Pagula turns in. Yeah, let's just hope Terry Pagula turns into Al Davis and just prioritizes speed going forward.
You know
And
what?
the Bills just
You know
build a
what?
track team to go with Josh Allen, kind of like Miami's built on their
Oh my
offense.
God.
He
No,
definitely rose his stock from probably going from 25 to 30 to 15,
mhm.
20,
Yep.
but I would 1000% trade up for
You
Matthew
know what's going to
Golden.
happen? You know what's going to happen if the Bills trade up for Matthew Golden or any wide receiver? That's going to be the guy
I
that
would be
absolutely.
celebrating.
No, that's the guy that's going to drop the pass in the playoffs and make everybody go, "What are we
You
doing
shut
again?"
it.
Okay,
You
okay.
That's
shut it.
why
Watch the
Don't
Arizona
put
State
bad
game.
juju.
Sorry.
Don't put the bad juju out into the universe like that.
defense
Stop
round
it.
one, period. I know.
Connor, go back and
That's
watch
your
the Arizona
stance.
State game in
Defense.
Yep,
double
All
overtime
right.
or whatever it
So
was,
so
overtime where he caught that fourth down pass.
I
so
know.
That was a clutch catch.
It
So
was.
real quickly, Connor wants defense. I want Nickerman
Period.
Worry, who Connor would apparently be happy with because he wants defense. Paul
Well,
wants
yeah.
Matthew Golden. And we kind of talked about Matthew Golden earlier. As we'll do our last segment quickly. So from the combine, stock up and stock down. Obviously, the stock is up for Matthew Golden.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
From what I
give
hear.
a couple players that I'm gonna give the stock up, and one player who definitely did not help his stock. Defensive tackle Alfred Collins out of Texas. He would definitely fill the need on the defensive line. He was measured at 6'6",
Big guy.
332 pounds, 10-inch hands, 34 and 5/8 arms. Like, he's a big boy. He could stop the run. Definitely take up some double teams for Ed Oliver. Next on my list, obviously after Nick Worry and obviously Matthew Golden, who we already talked about, we have the cornerback from Iowa State. There's a couple Iowa State players on my list, but defensive back Darian Porter Jr. He ran a let me check his 40 again, a 4.3 flat on the 40, 36.5-inch vertical, and he's 6'3", 195 pounds, 33 and 1/8 arm length. So he is a very big toolsy corner. I feel like he would be a
That's
great addition
nice.
to McDermott's defense. He can run. Lastly, I'll give you two bonuses, but I love Jalen Noel from Iowa State. His stock has absolutely skyrocketed from the Senior Bowl, arguably at the best combine performance, not including the 40 time, but he still was not slow by any means. Now he's only 5'10", but he is 194 pounds, so he's built for being 5'10". He ran a 4.39 40, and he put up the most reps out of any wide receiver for the bench press with 23 reps on the bench press. Like, that's the man who's
That's
definitely going
nuts.
to be able to beat press coverage. He's been compared to Ladd McConkey with his route running, and we saw what Ladd McConkey did last year. I know, Paul, you weren't on the Ladd McConkey train last year, but you missed
I
out.
I wasn't
wasn't,
either.
but
Don't worry.
now I
Will
feel
you
dumb.
will you be on the Jalen Noel train and not miss out on another stud coming out?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'll give a
Perfect
shout out
Any
indeed.
wide
to
receiver that would help the room, I would be willing for because I'm not missing out on another stud like Ladd.
You can get one of the
um.
studs literally at
Well,
any
I'll
round of the
throw
draft.
another shot. I'll throw another shout out to Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky for running the fastest 40 time. He's another cornerback I will be watching very keenly this draft. He ran a 4.28, so more speed. We know we are missing speed in the secondary against Kansas City, a guy who can run with Xavier Worthy. And then this is probably going to be obvious to all of you, but one guy who did not help his combine was wide receiver Tez Johnson. He had
Yeah,
arguably the
that was
best Senior
bad.
Bowl, but he measured in at 154 pounds, and he only ran a 4.51 at the 40. Now, he improved from his original
Yeah, that
time,
was
which is a
bad.
4.55, but for him to run in the 4.5s at his height, his weight, I mean, we saw Trey Harris run a 4.54, I believe, which is good for his size. And Jaden Higgins, arguably one of the most impressive 40 times for being 6'4", ran a 4.47 on his 40 time. And that one receiver from Tennessee, Dante Thornton, I believe, 6'5", ran a 4.340 or 4.35, either 4.3 or 4.35. But he had one of the faster times of being 6'5". It's just not going to work in the NFL for Tez Johnson. I mean, I think he plays faster game speed wise, but we've seen Tank Dell get some unfortunate, nasty injuries that have really put a damper on his career. And the same can't happen to Tez Johnson. Now, does anyone have any more risers or fallers that they had on their list from the combine that I didn't already mention? Go ahead.
I mean, you mentioned a lot of them so far, but
Yeah.
It sounded like your list was kind of tailored to Bill's needs, but I think here I'm going to give you a name that I really was surprised to see, or just was like in shock when I was watching the combine. I can't say his first name for the life of me, but his last name is an easy last name. He's a running back out of Virginia Tech, and his last name is Tutton, and he ran a 4.32.
Yes.
I can't say his first name, but his last name is simple, so I said his last name. So if the
starts
Bills,
with a B, I think.
It starts with the
Doesn't
B,
it?
but I'm not going to try to say it right now. It's
like
it's
Button,
like
Tutton, or
B with
something.
like a bunch of
Whatever.
consonants after. Yeah,
Yeah,
but right
Tutton
now
definitely helped his draft stock up. There's no
he
questions
did.
about that. I mean, the Bills
So-
do kind of need a running back, though, and the running backs performed
Right.
very well. So,
Actually, full transparency, obviously, I really wasn't able to pay too much attention to the combine because of all of the racing stuff that's been going on. It was at the Daytona 500 for the second year in a row. And I've just been so in depth with IndyCar season opener, which happened last week at St. Pete. So I really haven't been too much into combine news, but I heard that Shedder Sanders really tanked his stock from his interviews. Was he
So
at the combine, or was he
you
like?
missed our quick take because that was our first quick take. But yes, he did. He was at the combine. Him and Cam Ward did not throw. Every other quarterback did and participated in drills. Also, I do have a little bit of a. I don't even know. It's some golf tournament, but Josh Allen. So Josh Allen was at some golf tournament and he took a picture with wide receiver Christian Kirk, who potentially might be available this free agency because he has he does have
saw that photo.
He does have a big cap hit and he is expected to be a cap casualty by Jacksonville. So I've been a Christian Kirk truther in the past, so that is another name to add up. And
That's interesting. I actually like it. And, well, being near Jax, I'd be down. I would absolutely go for it.
By next week at this next week, I mean, we had a couple of trades this week, even between Deebo Samuel and Jonah Jackson, but hopefully we got a couple more trades to maybe discuss, maybe a Bills trade or two. But the legal tampering period starts next week. So by our next show, we should have an idea of a couple of either roster moves by the Bills pertaining to the legal tampering or at least some cap moves, and we'll have some more rumors. So does anyone have any more thoughts before we sign off before our next show, which should be a very fun one?
Just go out and Brandon Bean, be aggressive. Honestly, that's the model you set so far at the combine from the combine interviews.
Let Bean
if you're going to be aggressive, you got to show that you're going to be aggressive.
Get Myles Garrett into Buffalo at all costs. Literally.
I like it. Well,
Myles Garrett.
That should wrap up tonight's episode. Follow us all on X. Follow the official Undercovers page on X. Subscribe to us on any of the audio platforms between YouTube. Are we on Apple Podcasts or no?
We are.
We ought to be if we're not.
Okay, yes. Perfect. Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, X. And follow us all again and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.